Heard about me. I'm not going to go around the room and ask each person for an introduction. However, we'll do some quick profiling. Can I get every person in the room with a heartbeat put their hands up? Just one hand. Thank you. Yeah, just a heartbeat, just one heartbeat. All right, hands up, keep them up. Beauty. Put your hands down if you're not an architect. All right, good. Everyone put your hands up again. Put your hands down if you're not an engineer. Oh, keep mine up. Good, good, good. All right, hands up again. Put your hands down if you're not a building surveyor or, yeah, certifier. Do we have, yeah, we got one. Good. All right, cool, you can keep me honest. All right, let's go again. Everyone put your hands up. Put your hands down if you do not have access to the building code or the NCC. Now, in what way did I ask that? Now, people with their hands up have access, is that correct? Yeah, beauty, cool. So those people who don't have access, put your hands up again. Just people who don't have access. You can't hear? Not at all? Sorry? Yeah. Put your hands up. All right, we'll do that again for the benefit of our confolk over here in the corner. Everyone put your hands up again. Put your hands down if you do not have access to the NCC, the National Construction Code. Okay, so these people who have their hands up have access. All right, for those people who don't have access, put your hands up this time if you know how to get it. So you know how to get it, but you don't have it? Cool, good. You know how to get it if you don't have it? Good, all right, I'm going to explain how to get it. That's cool. Last test, all right, and this one is a test. No, it's not really. All right, everyone put your hands up one more time, last time. Leave your hands up if you feel you understand the building code. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, right answer, thanks. Greg, Mario, your hand should be up, thank you. Good, good. All right, this one I'm going to go through an introduction to the National Construction Code. I'm going to talk about the deemed satisfied provisions as a pathway for demonstrating compliance. I'm going to talk about individual performance solutions as a pathway for demonstrating compliance, and finally I'm going to talk about another method we have available to us called CodeMark certification. Okay, cool. The National Construction Code, by way of introduction, it's a performance-based code. So what that means, in contrast to a prescriptive-based code, is that the National Construction Code says you must achieve this level of performance. Later on, it does go on to say, here's a way you can do it, but in its very essence, it says you must achieve this level of performance. Okay, it's written by the Australian Building Codes Board, who we've heard a bit about. It is now on a 3-year amendment cycle that changed in 2016. So for the next amendment, obviously, to be out in 2019. They've just closed submissions for inclusion in 2019, and the draft for public comment will be available, I think, in February 2018. Okay, the building code in itself is not legislation. The Australian standards in themselves, whether referenced in the building code or not, are not legislation. The building code is written by the Commonwealth Government, being the Australian Building Codes Board, but it's not enforced by the Commonwealth Government. It's enforced by state governments. It's adopted by and enforced by state governments. It's actually very important to understand that the building code in itself is not law. Oh, here we go. And, of course, free access. So for those people who do not have access, www.abcb.gov.au, register, log in, download it, and it's there. You get all of it for free. That changed in 2016 as well. All right, beauty, this is the structure. Compliance level, the performance requirements, they're mandatory. Also are the general requirements. They're given mandatory, the mandatory status by the state legislation. And what's below that in the compliance solutions in this level, you get given options of how to achieve that. So on one hand, you have individual demonstration of performance, and on the other hand, you have our prescriptive-based, do this like that, it's okay. Beauty. And can I get an example of a deemed to satisfy provision? Does anyone know a deemed to satisfy provision? Yep.
You've got in the energy efficiency, if you've got in your certain climate zone and you've got a heavyweight wall, then in the certain...
Great. Yeah, so if you've got more than 220 kilograms per cubic metre of wall, per square metre, correct, thank you, per square metre of wall, then you can reduce the R value that you provide. Yep, beauty. Cool, that's one. So that's a prescriptive-based provision, and then we have prescriptive-based manuals. So prescriptive-based manual would be something like AS 1684, Residential Timber Framing Code. All right, moving right ahead. Okay, structure. Beauty, I spoke about mandatory requirements. It's set out in 3 volumes. Volume 1 is for buildings classes 2 to 9. Can someone name a building class that would be in class 2 to 9? Say again? Retail, yep, retail, great. Class 6. Library, class 9B, public assembly area. High-rise residential, anyone know what class that is? 3? Or is it 3 or 2? I think it's 2. Okay, beauty. Class 1 and 10 buildings, anyone name class 10 building? Shed, garage, yep. Fence? Yes, the fence is the class 10 building. Class 1 building? All residential up to 3 stories. Cool. All right, and then volume 3, plumbing, which... Oh, anyone interested in plumbing? Good. Excellent. All right, this is the flow chart. This is how it goes. This is how to demonstrate compliance, and look at this and I can sit down. So, okay, you've got performance requirements at the highest level, law mandated. Okay, from there you can choose, go down this route or go down this route. Okay, largely people want to go down this route because it means paying less schmucks like me. That's what that means. So you don't have to pay me to demonstrate anything. You go to your certifier and they tick the box. Cool. Going down this route is a performance solution, individual case-by-case demonstration of compliance. In order to demonstrate that compliance, we have methods, they're called assessment methods, and I'll talk more about that in a minute. Okay, beauty, so that's it. Righto, for earth wall construction, this is our deemed to satisfy provisions for earth wall construction. Ray up the front might be able to give some detailed background of how we got to this point, no doubt. I imagine you probably could. But what's really important here is not that earth wall construction is not permitted. It's that what we have, or rather what we don't have, is this avenue. That's all it's saying, okay? So really important. It's not saying big cross through it, you can't do it. It's saying you don't have this avenue available to you.
For all classes?
For all classes of building, yeah, correct. Classes 1, 2, 3, all the way through 10. So there are no deemed to satisfy provisions for earth wall construction. There are also no deemed to satisfy construction manuals. So for timber framing, you may choose to comply with, or perhaps even a better example is light steel framing. You may choose to comply with what's in the building code, and there is tables for light steel framing in the building code. And if you go, I don't really want to do that, you can design your steel framing to, is it AS4100? Thanks, yep, AS4100, which is that's distinct to a deemed to satisfy provision, that's a deemed to satisfy manual. You can do that, and that's still going down this path. You design it to AS4100, crack on. Earth construction doesn't have any provisions and it doesn't have any manuals, deemed to satisfy manuals. We have some manuals that aren't deemed to satisfy. Cool. Righto, so to get earth construction into the deem to satisfy, this is the process. For 2019, better work quick because September 2017 is when you've got to have it in by. All right, sweet. So 2019's out. For incorporation into 2022. Your submissions are due by August 2020. Okay, so to have a provision or a construction manual incorporated into the deem to satisfy, 2020, August 2020.
So we need 2020 vision.
Thank you. Righto, so the point about not having a deem to satisfy, it's not a bad thing, okay? I know that there's been a lot of talk about, in fact, a lot of people have come up to me this week and said, hey, how can we get a manual? How can we get a manual that we do it like this and it's okay? All right, yeah, you can do that. And the answer is through a lot of hard work, okay? So you can write a manual, NASH, being the National Australian Steel Framing Standard. They've done it outside of SAI Global. Standards Australia didn't write their manual, but the industry group wrote their manual. It can be done. Does it need to be done? Maybe. No, I don't think so. Maybe not. What I'll show you with the next section is how we go about demonstrating performance on a case-by-case scenario. And it's not all that onerous. Okay, cool. So any solution that meets the performance requirements by means other than the deem to satisfy, DTS, that is a performance solution. It's case-by-case variation and it's considered by the appropriate authority. In most cases, that's the local shire. In New South Wales, Victoria, Queensland, well, other states as well. That can also be a private certifier as well. So this is the process down the bottom. We write a performance-based design brief. That performance-based design brief, rather the scoping report for the performance-based design brief, is written at the start with all the stakeholders, building designers, architects, engineers, occupants, fire safety, fire wardens, the appropriate authority, that's a pretty important one. And we determine what is it that they're happy to accept. What's the criteria? How are we going to demonstrate that we meet the criteria? We do that up front. You sit down and you discuss it with the stakeholders. You do analysis, testing, research, analyse the results, produce the final performance-based design brief and get it ticked. Once it's ticked, then you can have your construction certificate or whatever name you call it in your state. Go ahead and build your building. Then certify it that it's been constructed in accordance with the plans. All right, so the assessment methods, the way we assess construction before it's been constructed, these are the ones that are listed in the building code. Okay, these are the only ones that are available for us to use to assess construction. Okay, evidence of suitability, which is a catch-all. All right, we can submit evidence of suitability, which can be international standards, lab test results, certificates from registered testing authorities, the opinion of the experts down below. Okay, so there is a catch-all, all right, and in that catch-all is also verification methods other than the ones that are listed in the National Construction Code. So in the NCC, we have verification methods that are prescribed. Those prescribed verification methods are actually DTS. So if I flick back here, oh, sorry, I misspoke. The verification methods sit in the performance solution, even though they're listed in the DTS side of the construction code. So, move forward. Okay, cool. So expert judgment, you can ask someone who considers themselves an expert to give you a thumbs up and we'll charge you accordingly for that. Thank you very much. Or you can simply sit there and compare with what the deem to satisfy provisions say you must do. And in doing that comparison, all you do is you compare the equivalent level of performance, and as long as you meet, if not exceed that, good to go. Righto, and then the last method is CodeMark certification. And this is a certificate from a registered testing authority, and not any registered testing authority, but one that's endorsed by the Australian Building Codes Board to be able to issue these certificates. Once you've got this issued, this certificate has a validity date and it has the performance requirements that your product meets listed on the certificate. This lends itself to proprietary systems, methods of construction, things that a proprietor has a vested interest in protecting the IP of. It generally doesn't lend itself to a broad-ranging mud brick method of construction or a broad-ranging rammed earth method of construction. But it's not out of the question, and I'll tell you it's not out of the question because there's a hempcrete manufacturer, or contractor rather, who has a CodeMark certification for their hempcrete adhesive. Okay. Now that doesn't actually say hempcrete's good to go and build hempcrete. It meets all of the performance requirements. In fact, it only says it meets some of under these conditions. However, taking a similar approach, rammed earth mud brick could do something similar to this. But what it takes is quality control system compliant with ISO 10005. It takes specifications and standards for the way you, or for the material you use and the material and the way you can control that material coming onto your site and being constructed. And most of all, it takes documenting of all your procedures. Okay, and I think that one thing we're good at in the earth building industry is knowing intuitively how things work and that we're happy with it. But one thing we're not so good at is documenting and being thorough in that guff that goes along in the corporate bureaucratic world. So that's where the major expense is in this. In fact, doing the audit to get that certificate, you know, it'll pardon me, SAI Global will charge about 15 to 20 grand to do it. Not quite that expensive when you compare to the resource cost of producing it. But what I want to ask now, if I've still got a few minutes, yep, excellent, cool. That's actually the end of my formal presentation. But what I want to ask now is, has anyone in the room actually drafted a performance solution before? Graham North, yep, up the front. What was yours on? Rammed earth, yeah, cool. Do you remember what performance requirements you hit on it? Erosion. Sorry, what was that one?
Compression, then I have to go through the rest of it out,
Yep, yeah, so you had to go through every performance requirement and demonstrate compliance of each performance requirement. And that really reflects the fact that a building is a system of systems. It's not a walling system attached to a roof. It's not a waterproofing system that you plug into a thermal envelope or something like that. It's a system of systems that performs as a system of systems. And I think Chris put it really well the other day. I don't have your artistic flair, but like that, no, I can't even restate it. My engineering mind just doesn't let me express myself in the same way that you kind of architects can express yourselves. But I find it really. It really is. It's a holistic system, and the performance solution procedure is not, are rammed earth walls strong enough? Tick. Okay, let's move on. It is, how does the incorporation of a non-DTS element into our building affect that system of systems? And that's the question we're asking. How does it affect it? We here in the earth building sub-industry, have an intuitive level of comfort and understanding with that, and we're happy with it. We know that it performs well. As a building surveyor and accredited certifier, they're at a position of they have a legislative requirement for absolute understanding, to be sure. And that surety can't rely on intuition, unfortunately, or fortunately. whichever way you want to look at. Yeah, that's essentially all I've got. So, is there any burning questions? Yeah, please.
Currently doing 2 buildings.
Excellent. Yep.
Class 1.
Class 1. Yep.
And then class 2.
Class 2 is good.
I've never been asked that by my certifier.
You've never been asked for a performance solution?
No.
Ah.
Only for the section J.
Yeah. Energy efficiency for those who.
Western Australia, because
Yep.
the basics
Yep.
in New South Wales we do it ourselves.
Yep.
That's it.
Yeah, beauty.
I think because the certifier see the blank page, they say, all right, there's no performance requirement.
Ah, that's
Legally he's right. Legally he's right.
no. Legally, he's wrong. because. Oh, sorry, I don't want to interrupt you. Please finish. Okay, so no. Okay, so let's say performance requirement P 2.1.1 structural reliability. Okay, most of us seek to use earth construction in some form of load bearing. Okay, even if they are infilled panels, they're still load bearing lateral out of plane loads, i.e. wind blowing the wall in. Okay, so they're still load bearing construction. They still have they are still required to perform in a structurally adequate manner. So there is performance requirements. That's one. Go on and list more. Weatherproofing P 2.2.2 requires that our buildings don't become. What is it? Anyway, I don't have the exact wording in the back of my mind. But the point is that we can't allow our buildings to become sufficiently wet to damage their operation or affect our health. Okay, so absolutely there are performance requirements that relate to earth building. But it's good to hear that your building certifier is relaxed and easy. Yeah, hand out his details.
On that, I've had a couple of jobs recently as an architect designing places. I've been asked to do that a couple of times. Exactly those clauses.
Yeah.
And what I've done is actually provided them with our earth building book.
Mm.
I said that's what it's for. And I said that's what we put it together for.
Yep.
That's what it addresses. What I really think we need to be doing is when we get asked those questions, straight away pointing towards that book.
Yeah.
There's something not in there, it needs to go in there, but that's the best place to start.
Yep.
And as we use that a lot more, then we've actually got, in confidence, we can actually answer those performance requirements of the BCA. And
Yeah, that's
I've had to rely sometimes back on expert opinion, saying that book then is able to do that.
absolutely.
And you have to do that, that's okay, but
Yeah.
it still goes through using that book.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because what I'll ask is, where does that book fit in this assessment method list? It doesn't. What it is a construction manual. Then the assessment method of either expert judgment to say that construction manual is suitable. That's the assessment method. So that tiny little detail is very important. That book is an excellent resource. Absolutely, it's a construction manual that sets out the minimum level of construction for earth walls, and that's good. And it's voluntary acceptance up until the point where the project documentation says we will do this like that. Good, and at that point it becomes project specification and it's part of the project. So then the project has adopted it, it's part of the spec. It's for the assessment method, for the purposes of how the building code requires the performance solution to be assessed. Does it have evidence of suitability, being a certificate from a professional engineer or something like that, or the simple opinion of an expert? And that's where you've been asked to provide that. So that's where the certifier is coming from. And while they might seem to be obstructive, they're merely following, their legislative obligations. I've got one just up the back first.
I had a query earlier this year
Yeah.
from the surveyor about that being satisfied, and I'll just read it.
Okay, no, it's an excellent question. So the response comes back from your certifier, for those who perhaps didn't hear it. Response comes back saying you're using earth walls, demonstrate how these earth walls comply with the performance requirements. The question is why, if he was only really interested in penetration of moisture, why didn't the certifier come back and say demonstrate how it doesn't allow the undue build-up of moisture to degrade the building or something to that effect. The reason why the certifiers asked the question in the way they did is to be inclusive of all of the performance requirements. Demonstrate how your building system satisfies the system of performance requirements. That's why I asked it in that way. He or she asked it in that way. Yeah, I guess that's the short answer. It's not to be obstructive. It's because if the certifier asks how does it protect against moisture, and you go, oh, that's an easy one. Line, here's some information. He goes, oh, that's excellent. Oh, actually, damn it, I needed to ask about thermal. How does it do thermal? Oh, how does it do structural? They ask it in the way that they do because then you go to the building code, and the building code says in order to demonstrate a performance solution down this path, this one, the building code says in order to do this, here's the method of doing it, and that method includes an explanation of how to go through the building code and identify those performance requirements. Okay, sorry, I'll have to take the rest of the questions offline. Thanks very much.